running their mouth, it's for nothing, you know, to go back to prison. Thereby confirming and reinforcing our negativity. So we already felt this negative about ourselves, so we act in a way that people are not going to respect us, and so we begin to see people being disrespectful towards us, right? And so it says reinforcing our negativity. And as long as when we walk around, again, with this victim mentality that we carry, and I think that all of us, as much as I talk about, let's say, the victim mentality, I can't say I'm completely unaffected by that, right? Because again, I know that I carried that idea in my head for so long. And again, what I mean is that, you know, somebody else is responsible for the outcome in my life, right? And that, you know, I was kind of stuck, right? At somebody else's, you know, at the whim of anybody else who happened to be making the decisions. And that's not true, right? But, and I'm constantly getting rid of any sign or symptom of that shit from me because it's toxic. That shit is toxic. It will keep us, you know, we always talk about oppressed, right? That's the oppression. The victim mentality is the fucking oppression, right? I don't know, well, at least in this country, there are not too many people that I could say that could try to claim oppression, right? Now, there are some people that got fucked up shit going on in their life. There are some people that sometimes get a raw deal. But oppression, get the fuck out of here, right? And then again, I'm not saying that oppression don't exist, but what we have, everything that I see from, let's say, the bad neighborhoods, poor areas, no matter what race, is mostly, I think all the way, but I'm just going to get a benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say mostly, is mostly caused by the people in the communities, right? The things that they choose to do, the things that they choose to value, the things that they choose to put ahead of other things, you know? And again, I've used myself over and over in this example, right? The things that, when I got out of prison, the things that I chose to spend money on, right? Which is basically bullshit. You know, fucking motorcycles and cars, and I can't tell you, wasting money on all kind of different shit, right? You know, fucking air rifle. I got a couple of high-powered air rifles, right? And one of them is a PCP air rifle. And it's, so the PCP air rifles, you know, those are the ones you gotta like charge it up with either air compressor or a compressed air tank. And just the tank, the fucking tank, right? It's a compressed air. That's what the tank holds, compressed air. But it's like a high power. It got what is it, 4,500 PSI tank, right? Just the fucking tank, $850 for a fucking air tank about this big for the rifle, right? That's the tank for some fucking air, to put some air in, $800, right? Not to mention the cost of the individual rifles, right? Not to mention the cost of the different motorcycles and different shit that I bought, right? So that's where I poured money into, right? Now, am I rich? Do I have a lot of money? Absolutely not. My ass fucking trying to, you know, keep shit going and, you know, like I said, keep a little business going and working on the line of credit and stuff like that. And again, I got to appeal with the Small Business Administration for the line of credit. And, but again, had I put all of that money into my business, right, it is likely by now, right, I got out originally in 2010, by now I could have already had the business up and going, making sufficient money, and bought all of those things using the money that was generated from that business, right? But my thinking was backwards, and I just wanted a bunch of shit, right? Which a lot of people in the community want, right? But I choose to use myself as an example of the twisted values that we have Because again, when you feel like the rock is being thrown at you, it's hard to listen to, right? Including for myself. If I feel you talking shit to me, I'm like, man, fuck you, right? That's how that's kind of how I feel about it. So, again, I want to use myself as an example for that. So I didn't waste it. I can't. If I add everything up, accumulate everything had to be. I'd say I threw away a good 100,000, a little more, since I've been out. Thrown away. I call it thrown away. I say thrown away, right? And I enjoyed some, but if I look at, okay, I'm worried about not having my business going the way that I want. So do I now complain and say, well, the government and systemic racism is the reason why I'm not successful right now? Can I claim that? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, I can say it, but it'll be some fucking bullshit, right? And I think that a lot of people say it, and it's some bullshit, but the problem is that they don't know it's bullshit, right? Because you're being told this over and over. And unfortunately, now you even got the government telling you. Yeah, it's the systemic racism in the government that's keeping you from being able to be successful. And so you're like, fuck, they're telling me that they're the ones that's doing it, so why wouldn't I believe them, right? And I say, no, you're not that weak, right? You're not that weak, right? You can succeed. It's all of us, right? And whether you're poor, if you're poor now, you're poor, we could say life circumstances is the reason why you're poor now. However, if you remain that way, that's your choice. If you remain that way, it's your choice. None of us have an option. We don't get to say, we ain't like, a little sperm and an egg and we kind of have a little meeting and decide like what kind of family we want to be in, right? We don't get that fucking choice, right? We don't get that choice. We gotta, we fall where the fuck we fall, right? We don't get to choose our race and none of that shit, right? But after that, when it comes to success or failure and all that, we have choices, right? And we can choose to succeed. Like I said, that shit is just hard though. That shit is difficult. It's a lot of work. It's not fun. It's worth it, but it's not necessarily fun. And so we have to be able to challenge ourselves, and we have to be motivated to challenge ourselves. But we're not going to have that motivation if, excuse me, if our self-esteem is exceptionally low and we don't have self-efficacy, which again is confidence in our competence or self-respect, right? Then the third thing it says about this, it says, if we wish to raise the level of our self-respect, we need to act in ways that will cause it to rise. And this begins with a commitment to the value of our own person, which is then expressed through congruent behavior, right? So again, if we wish to raise our level of self-respect, so again, we have these two components, and I'm talking about them. I'm using this 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem book by Nathaniel Branden. And I'm talking about these two things, self-efficacy and self-respect. We're talking about them conceptually separate, right? We're talking about self-efficacy, self-respect, right, in their own little section. But the way we experience them, they're not experienced separate. They're experienced together, right? The self-efficacy and the self-respect run hand in hand. But if we wish to raise our level of self-respect, we need to act in ways that will cause it to rise. So what does that mean? Act in ways that will cause it to rise. That means doing esteemable acts. That means doing things that you know to be right. Doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even when you want to do otherwise. Right? That's how we fucking grow. right? We will do the right thing because it happens to be the right thing to do, even when there's something telling us we want to go and do something else, right? But for whatever reason, we know it's not right, so we choose not to do it. And then over time, we become more and more comfortable doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, right? And it's something that takes practice. Anything that we internalize, that we begin to internalize and to do, it takes practice, right? It becomes habitual. So again, if we wish to raise our level of self-esteem, our level of self-respect, we need to act in ways that will cause it to rise. And this begins with a commitment to the value of our own person, right? Of our own person, right? Your person, your body, yourself, right? As a person, as a human being, which is then expressed through congruent behavior. So, which is then expressed in behavior, right? The behaviors, the things that you choose to do as you are working on your self-esteem and building in your self-respect will reinforce that self-esteem, meaning that we will stop doing, let's say, criminal behavior, right? And in my opinion, this even applies to your drug addiction, right? And again, I'm not an addict maker, right? Even though I'm a substance abuse counselor and all that. And what I mean by addict maker is you'll have some people, they'll see anybody that comes through a treatment facility or something, and if the person doesn't admit they're addict, they're all, you're in denial, you're this and that, and they just beat them over the head until they admit they're a fucking addict, right? That's not for me to decide if you're an addict or an alcoholic, right? You may or may not be, right? But your history with the substance abuse will let you know and determine whether you're an addict or an alcoholic. And if you are, then clearly you need to stay the fuck away from the drugs and alcohol, period, right? You need to stay the fuck away from it. But you need to make that determination, right, as to whether you are an addict or an alcoholic. But I say that to say this. When you improve your self-esteem, self-efficacy, and self-respect, it will even help you with your substance abuse issues, because as you begin to respect yourself, you're not going to want to put yourself in any situation that's going to take away from your opportunities of being successful. And we know that the things that we have done in the past, for me, it was the criminal behavior. For me, it was violence. It was, again, I liked the criminal lifestyle, right?